Hello everyone, welcome back. In today's video, we got another news video here to discuss. First, looking at the games that happened over the past couple of days and previewing the next couple of days' game action. We're also looking at some signings, injury updates, a couple more coaching updates with the New Jersey Devils and the LA Kings. I've also got a couple of pieces of news involving the Canucks, Lightning, Predators, and the LA Kings. And we'll get to all of that coming up right now. Hello everyone, welcome back to another video here at the Internet Hockey Channel. Before we get into this video, don't forget to like this video and subscribe down below. Thank you all for your support. I know it's with you guys, so if you haven't already, don't forget to subscribe button down below and don't forget to leave a comment down in the comment section below so someone else gets into today's video. Now, as usual, going to do another quick game review video before we get to the news portion of this video. So first, looking back at the games that happened over the past couple of days, just one game from the last couple of days of game action, and that was the New York Rangers taking on the Florida Panthers in game one of the Eastern Conference Final. We saw an interesting game, really physical game. Really interesting game. Panthers really dictated the play for most of that game. A late first period goal from Matthew Chychrun made it 1-0. That's the way it would be until midway through the third period. Oliver Ekman-Larsson saw it. He scored, but it was called back due to goalie interference. So it remained Florida 1-0. Just a couple minutes after that, Carter Verhaeghe put a puck to the net and went off of Alexis Lafreniere's stick it into the net, which made it a 2-0 game for the Panthers. And after that, the Panthers are going to empty net goal from Sam Bennett to ice the game. The Panthers wound up taking this one 3-0. So the Panthers take a 1-0 series lead after a 3-0 win over the New York Rangers. Second shutout in Bobrovsky's playoff history. His first and only other shutout was in last year's Eastern Conference Final against the Hurricanes. So that's interesting to note there for the Panthers. Tkachuk had goal and assist, Verhaeghe had goal and assist, and Bennett also scored for the Panthers in the win, while the Rangers were not able to get a goal from anyone in their loss. So bad stuff there for the Rangers, and Bobrovsky stopped all 24 shots he faced in the shutout and the victory. So very good stuff there for Florida. But that was the only game from the past couple of days. Panthers take a 1-0 series lead, and I'll be looking to make it 2-0 in our next game. Later today, we have one game of NHL action. At 5:30 p.m. Pacific time, we have the Dallas Stars taking on the Edmonton Oilers in game one of their Western Conference Final. Also, takes the 1-0 series lead and has the early advantage. And then tomorrow on Friday, we have the New York Rangers taking on Florida Panthers in game two of their conference final. The Panthers are going to be looking to try and replicate their Eastern Conference Final from last year and win their sixth straight Eastern Conference Final over the past couple of years and take a 2-0 series lead heading back to Florida. Taking on the New York Rangers team is looking to try and even up the series and force at least to game 5 with a win tomorrow. So we'll have to wait and see exactly how those ones go. But that's the game review update for the past couple of days. Panthers take a 1-0 series lead. I'll have game 1 in the West and game 2 in the East over the next couple of days. Going over to my news portion of the video. So first, we've got a couple of signs to talk about here. Not a whole bunch, but there were some significant ones, so we'll get to all those here. First, the New York Islanders gave an ELC to undrafted right winger Maxim Chytil. Chytil gets a 1-year ELC with the AV of $950,000. That'll be for this upcoming season. For Chytil, he was been playing over in the KHL the past couple of years. Last year had 10 goals and 25 points in 63 games. This year had 31 goals and 47 points in 65 KHL games and looked fantastic. So that's a pretty good sign there for the Islanders. Not sure if he'll be a consistent NHL forward, but looked like a pretty good player over in the KHL. Was a highly sought after player, and the Islanders are the team who winds up getting him. So interesting stuff there, but looks like he could be eventually a solid, maybe third line forwards there, maybe a scoring forward for the Islanders, which is something they desperately need. So that's a solid sign there for the Islanders. Then we saw the New Jersey Devils extend Curtis MacDermid. We're wondering if they were going to be doing this. They got him at the deadline. He's a really good physical presence there for the Devils. He does wind up extending. He's a defenseman, can play either side of the defensive core, can also play forward if need be. He gets a 3-year contract extension with an AV of $1.15 million that'll begin at the start of next year. So that's a really good sign there for MacDermid. MacDermid this year split time between the Devils and the Avalanche, put up 2 goals and 1 assist in 45 NHL games with the Devils and the Avalanche combined after having 6 points in 44 games last year with the Avalanche. Looks like a pretty good player. I think he's a solid third pair defenseman, a really good physical presence, and someone who I think the Devils really do like. So that's a solid sign there for the Devils to keep MacDermid on the contract for the next couple of years. Then the Anaheim Ducks gave an ELC to Rodwin Dionico. Dionico, who's a 2023 5th round pick, gets a 3-year 3-year ELC with a view of $950,000. That'll begin at the start of next year. He's been playing over in the OHL. Last year, put up 15 goals and 50 points in 50 OHL games. Looks like a pretty good prospect. This year, at 25 goals and 73 points in 60 games, so over a point per game. Looked fantastic in the OHL, and I think eventually he should be a solid third-line player there for the Ducks. That's a fantastic sign there for Anaheim. Then we saw the Chicago Blackhawks sign Brett Seney, who was one of their penny UFAs, who's a center left winger, to a 1-year contract extension with a view of $775,000 that'll begin at the start of next year. Now for Seney, he'd played in the AHL this past year, put up 23 goals and 63 points in 68 games. Also got to 4 NHL games, putting up no points. Last year has a goal in 7 games at the NHL level, and also had 23 goals and 54 points in 59 AHL games. Looks like a pretty good AHL player who can be called up on occasion, so that's a pretty good sign there for the Blackhawks, who got another solid depth call-up option for the next couple of years. So that's a pretty good sign there for Chicago. And lastly, we saw New York Rangers sign center Dylan Ruberock, who's a 6th-round pick in the 2023 draft, to a 3-year ELC with a view of $850,000 that'll begin at the start of next year. Now Ruberock has been playing over in the OHL the past couple of years. Last year at 53 points in 68 OHL games. This year 26 goals and 72 points in 68 OHL games. Look fantastic. I think eventually could be a solid maybe 3rd or 4th line center for the Rangers, so solid sign there for the Rangers. But that's the only signings we have over the past couple of days. Rangers signed one of their prospects to an ELC, Ducks signed one of their prospects to an ELC, Islanders signed a KHL prospect to an ELC, the Devils extend Curtis MacDermid, who was a UFA, and the Blackhawks extend Brett Seney, who was UFA. So some interesting stuff there. Going over to a quick injury update for the past couple of days. We saw Philip Chytil yesterday be cleared to play and go back in the game action against New York Rangers. We also saw Vincent Igorio be cleared to play, and even though the Washington Capitals are not in a playoff contention right now, it's really good to see him back. And then we also saw Arturi Lehkonen have a shoulder injury. He's going to be out the next 5 months due to that shoulder injury. So with that in mind, Lehkonen's probably going to be out until sometime around September, October. So he's going to be back right around the start of the season. He might miss the first couple of weeks of the season, so it's really bad blow there for the Avalanche to lose Lehkonen. So interesting stuff there, but hopefully Lehkonen is back before training camp. But some interesting injury updates from the past couple of days. Going over to a couple of interesting pieces of news from the past few days. First, the New Jersey Devils have found their new head coach. We talked about the Leafs hiring their new head coach recently. We talked about how the Blues extended Bannister, Green went to Ottawa. We now have another new head coaching position. It's former Leafs head coach Sheldon Keefe. Sheldon Keefe has signed a new contract with the New Jersey Devils to be their new head coach. That's an interesting signing in my opinion. There was a lot of talk about Keefe being the new head coach of the Devils, and he is. I don't think he was the main reason as to why this Leafs team wasn't able to get over the hump in the playoffs, but he was definitely a contributing factor to it. But I think with a team that's a little bit more well constructed with their cap situation in New Jersey, it has a little bit more younger talent than the Leafs do right now. I think Keefe could be a fantastic coach for the New Jersey Devils. Now, he coached for 4 years and 5 months with the Toronto Maple Leafs from November 2019 to May 2024, so it's interesting stuff there. He is now the new head coach of the New Jersey Devils, so that's fantastic news there for him. I think it was a 4-year deal he signed with New Jersey Devils, so he's going to be the new head coach for the Devils for next foreseeable future. That's fantastic news there for the Devils, and I really do like this head coach hiring. I think Keefe could be the fantastic guy that the New Jersey Devils need to be that new head coach to take them to the next level. So, a pretty fantastic sign in my opinion for the New Jersey Devils. Meanwhile, the other sign that we're talking about was with the LA Kings, and they figured out their new head coaching position as they signed Jim Hiller, who was their interim head coach, to be their new head coach. And I think his contract was a 2 to 3 year deal, not exactly sure, but just like Bannister, he gets to remain the head coach after being the interim head coach. Hiller was able to lead this Kings team to the playoffs after having a rough patch in the middle of the season, and even though he did not get them very far in the playoffs, he looks like he could be a very good Kings head coach. So it's a very fantastic pickup there for the Kings, and I think Hiller should be a really solid coach there for LA. He had been an assistant coach in multiple places. He was the assistant head coach in Detroit for a year. He was an assistant head coach in Toronto for nearly 4 seasons. He was the assistant head coach in the Islanders situation from 2019 to 2022. He was then also an assistant head coach with the Kings from July 2022 to February 2024. Then in February 2024, he took over as the interim head coach until May 21st, 2024. and has now been promoted to being head coach of the LA Kings. So it's a really good sign there for the Kings. Keep someone who's familiar with the team, knows what it takes for this team to win, and I think that's a very fantastic hiring there for the Kings. So now, over the past couple of days, we've seen Keefe sign in Jersey, we've seen Berube sign in Toronto, we've seen Brind'Amour extend in Carolina, we've seen Hiller and Bannister have their interim tags removed and remain in head coaching positions with the Kings and the Blues. We've seen Green sign in Ottawa. So the only 3 coaching vacancies left in the NHL right now that are left are in Winnipeg and Seattle and San Jose. And if the new GM does see fit, and a lot of people do think he will, potentially in Columbus too, we could see Vincent be let go. So we'll have to wait and see on those ones, but Seattle, San Jose, Winnipeg, and potentially Columbus are the only vacancies left for the coaching positions. So some interesting stuff there, but Keefe's the new head coach in New Jersey, and Hiller will remain the new head coach in LA. So interesting stuff there. And lastly, going over to a couple of pieces of news. First with the Vancouver Canucks, with them being done now, there's been a lot of questions about who they're going to be targeting to keep. This team has a lot of question marks coming up this offseason. So just quickly looking at it here, I'll do a more in-depth video with the offseason preview video over the next couple of days, hopefully at some point next week. But just to look at some of these guys that are going to be UFAs this year for the Vancouver Canucks or have their no contract. So if you look at that on the free agent market, on the UFA side of the forward group, you have Teddy Bluger, Dakota Joshua, Sam Lafferty, and Elias Lindholm. On defensive end, you have Ian Cole, Mark Friedman, Tyler Myers, and Nikita Zadorov, not including RFA Philip Hronek. You also have RFA Artur Silovs and UFA Casey DeSmith. Now I think DeSmith is most likely gone. Silovs will probably get a 1 to 2 year extension with AV of somewhere just above $1 million will be my guess, so he's not going to cost overly much, but the rest of that roster really needs to be figured out. On the defensive end, Susie, Hughes, Juleson are all still signed for the next little while, but they do have a lot of interesting pinning free agents. Hronek, as much as he's a really good defenseman, he started to fade towards the end of the regular season. He was barely showable in the playoffs. I think he got like 2 points in the playoffs, and those were in the last 2 games of the playoffs. So not overly great news there for Hronek, and I think that he sort of maybe just played himself out with Vancouver. Canucks don't have a whole bunch of cap space. I don't think they can pay Hronek the $8 million he wants to remain in Vancouver, so I think Hronek is probably going to be traded at some point. Cole, I think he's gone. With the amount of bad plays he made in that Oilers series, and with him only being on a 1 year deal, I think there's a very likely chance Cole's gone. Friedman, probably also gone. I'm not sure if he'll be brought back. Myers and Zadorov, I think, are both going to be considered to be brought back. Zadorov, I think they really like, and if they can get him on a contract that's like 5 years times $5.5 million, I think they'd be willing to do it. I'm not sure if they'd be willing to go the full $6 million cap that a lot of people think Zadorov could get, but if Zadorov is willing to maybe take a little bit of a discount and sign for like $5 million, I think the Canucks could easily keep Zadorov. Myers has also been a pretty good defenseman, a really good tall physical guy who really helped that team in the playoffs. If they can get him on like a 2 to 3 year deal with AV of like $2.5 to $3 million, I think they'd like to keep him. But once again, if he wants more than 3, I don't think that it makes much sense to keep Myers. In the forward group, Bluger's been a fantastic 3rd, 4th line center. If he wants to come back with 1 to 2 year deals at something under $2 million, I think that the Canucks would do that. Joshua, he's been a fantastic middle 6 forward, really good physical forward. If the Canucks could keep him on like a 3x3 deal or something like that, I think they'll be willing to do that, but I don't think they'll be willing to go as high as $4 million. Sam Lafferty is also a pending UFA, probably will get like $1.5 million to $2 million on the open market. Not sure if he'll be brought back. And then I'll ask Lindholm, who I think if they could keep him on like a 6 to 7 year deal with the AV of like $7 million, they'll be willing to do that. But I still believe Lindholm's looking for $8.5 to $9 million on the open market, and I don't see the Canucks being willing to pay for that. So we'll have to see exactly what happens there. I also wonder if they try and move Ilya Mikheyev, who's a contract who I think they would like to get their hands off of. Besides that, I think there's going to be some interesting moves. I've seen a lot of people say that the Canucks could be a sort of like Carolina 2.0 this year, where they have set values for their UFAs and RFAs, and if the players want to sign for more than those set values, then they'll move on from them. So it'll be interesting to see exactly who they're able to keep and who they're able to not to. But guys like Joshua, Bluger, Lindholm, Zadorov, Myers are all going to be interesting pieces, as well as Hronek, who's a pending RFA. So interesting stuff there, but the Canucks are going to have a busy offseason ahead of them. Going over to the LA Kings. Could the LA Kings get back into the Jacob Chychrun sweepstakes? Now, we talked about this for a little while, but Chychrun is being linked to LA again. We talked about this a year and a half ago, the deadline, when Chychrun was available. A lot of people were expecting Chychrun to be moved to LA. The Kings needed some more defensive help. Now, they do have Gavrikov now, but I think with the potential departure of a guy like Matt Roy. They could use another top 4 defenseman. So I think they could be looking to go after a guy like Chychrun. They could move a first-round pick. They have a plethora of prospects, whether it be on the defensive end or up front, so that they could definitely make something work there. They have a couple of really good young pieces. They could definitely pull together a package that could acquire them Jakob Chychrun. So I'm not saying it's an impossibility. I'm just saying it'll be a difficult trade to pull off, especially with their cap hit and Chychrun still having a $4.6 million cap hit. So we'll have to wait and see exactly what happens there, but incorporate LA into the Chychrun sweepstakes, as it sounds like LA does still have some interest in guy Jakob Chychrun, and they would definitely have the assets to pull off a trade, so I'll have to wait and see on that. And lastly, what are the effects for both teams of the Ryan McDonagh trade? Now, a lot of people have been talking about the Ryan McDonagh trade. We talked about this over the past couple of days in a separate video. We talked about how McDonagh was acquired by the Tampa Bay Lightning, as well as a 4th round pick in exchange for a 7th and a 2nd. So this was an interesting move. Now, for the Bolts side of things, does this mean Steven Stamkos is gone? Now, I've seen a lot of people say that the Bolts are looking to try and work on Stamkos' contract, trying to get him extended, but after that McDonagh contract, I think they have around $5 million on his cap hit, and unless they're willing to move some significant piece off their roster to free up cap space, they're not going to have enough cap space to sign Stamkos. I think Stamkos in the open market would get $8 to $9 million, and I don't see the Bolts really being able to sign him to that. Even if he was to take like some sort of a discount and sign $7 million in Tampa, I still don't think they'll be able to sign him unless they move some significant piece. Now they have Jeannot, who makes over $2 million. They have Sherry, who makes exactly $2 million. They also have Eric Chernak, whose name has been coming up. He's a solid top for the defenseman who's making over $5.25 million. Could any of these guys get moved? I think it's possible. But once again, you're weakening other positions to try and get Stamkos. And if Stamkos signs for $7 million, you're really handicapping yourself for getting depth to this team. So I'm not exactly sure if Stamkos will be back. I think the addition of McDonagh really makes it hard for this Bolts team to make any sort of other moves that are going to be significant to help this team acquire more depth if they do wind up signing Stamkos. And if they don't sign Stamkos, it's a big blow for that Bolts team. So I think this Bolts team is in a really big cap predicament. I'll have to wait and see if Stamkos does remain or not, but I think with the acquisition of McDonagh, it really does make it a little more difficult for them to keep Stamkos. For the Predators side, there's been a lot of talk of what they'll do with the newfound cap space. I've seen a lot of people link Marner to Nashville. Could they try and make something work there? The Preds do have a really good goaltender in Sauers, though. You could be willing to move. They have a decent amount of really good young forward prospects. They have a really good young forwards. I'm not exactly sure if they have the defenseman that the Leafs will be wanting to acquire in a Marner trade, but they would be having a lot of really interesting pieces. But so far at this point in time, it doesn't sound like the Leafs have been talking to any teams about Marner, and it sounds like the Predators are sort of toning down any sort of the rumors that they're talking about Marner trade right now. So, and that sort of seems like it's not going to happen right now, but it's quite possible it could happen in the future. They could go after a lot of pieces in free agency with newfound cap space. Marchessault, Duchesne, Reinhart, Stamkos if they hit the free agent market. So there's definitely some interesting pieces they could go after. I also seen some people say they could go after some defensemen like a Tanev or a Zadorov with newfound cap space. So we'll have to wait and see exactly what they do, but they do have a lot of newfound cap space, and whether that's trading for Marner or someone else in the forward group, or looking at free agents either on the forward group or the blue line, I think there's a very likely chance with newfound cap space the Predators are going to be going and trying to get some interesting pieces this offseason. So I'll have to wait and see exactly what happens there. But that's all we're talking for today. What do you think of all this stuff we discussed here today? Do the Preds go after Marner or a big time free agent, whether it be forward on the defensive end with their newfound cap space? Do the Bolts wind up moving on from Stamkos, or do they find a way to move off some cap space to keep Stamkos? Do the Kings wind up re-engaging in talks around Jakob Chychrun? And if so, what do you think a package would have to be to acquire Chychrun? Who do the Canucks wind up keeping? Lindholm, Joshua, Bluger, Zadorov, Myers, Hronek? Which do they keep, and which guys do they wind up moving on from? Love to hear your thoughts on that. Plus, what do you think about the Keefe and Hiller hirings in New Jersey and LA? What do you think about the injury updates, the signing updates, and last night's game between the Panthers and the New York Rangers? Definitely, let me know your thoughts on all of that down in the comment section below. That's all I'm going to talk about for today. Remember to like this video, and if you're like it, subscribe down below. Thank you all your support, and help you guys. So if you haven't already, don't forget the subscribe button down below, and don't forget to leave a comment down in the comment section below. So also today's video, also a blog talking about news, rumors, analysis, stuff like that. So if you check that out, I'll leave a link down in the description below, and come to see you guys all for next video. See you guys soon.